In this video, we're going to look at cat organs. You can follow along in your lab manual. There's a list of cat organs. Cats have mainly the same organs that humans do, and they look basically the same too. So let's start here at the top. We're going to go into the neck right here. This is the trachea. This is the cat's windpipe. Notice these little kind of stripes on these. These are cartilaginous rings that keep that windpipe, that trachea, open all the time for residual air. Just deep to the trachea is this flattened tube. This is the esophagus. This is when the cat eats and drinks, it goes down the esophagus. This remains closed unless you're swallowing. That goes down into the stomach. The trachea goes down into the lungs, which are here. Look at these lungs. This is a lobe. Here's a lobe. Here's a lobe. There's another one tucked back there. Here's a lobe, lobe, lobe. Cats have 3 lobes on the left and 4 lobes on the right. We have 2 lobes on the left, 3 on the right. You don't need to know that other than when you look at this and you wonder, what is all that stuff? It's all lung here. And in between the lungs, medially, is the heart. This heart still has the pericardium around them. That's what those fatty little pockets are. So there's the heart. Now I'm going to kind of lift the heart and lungs up. And what we see now is this big dome-shaped organ. This is actually the diaphragm muscle. See the fibers in it? This is your chief muscle in breathing. So what it does is it's going to contract. When it contracts, it's going to allow you to breathe in, and when it relaxes, it's going to push up on the lungs so that you breathe out. So there's your diaphragm muscle. And the diaphragm muscle effectively divides the thoracic cavity from the abdominal pelvic cavity. That's what we're seeing down here. Now, just inferior to the diaphragm. Look at this big old liver here. This is the liver. There's several lobes of this. Tucked in between lobes of the liver, we see the gallbladder. And it's kind of greenish. It's this little flattened balloon. That's going to store bile. Bile is actually produced by the liver, but it's stored in concentrated amounts in that gallbladder. I'm going to pull the liver up and out of the way, and we see the stomach. This is the stomach here, curves around like that. This one's empty. They're not always like that. There's the stomach. Now I'm going to pull that up, and what we see inferior then to the stomach is the spleen. That's what this is. Looks like a big old tongue sticking out at you. There's the spleen. Pull that back, and in between the stomach and the spleen, we see the pancreas. That's what all this is. Pancreatic tissue, kind of looks like chewed up bubble gum. This is glandular tissue, so as the air hits it, it starts to kind of disintegrate, so we don't get to see a true organ. It's all kind of shredded here. So that's the pancreas. So let's look at those again. Liver, gallbladder, stomach, spleen, pancreas. Now we're going to get to the intestines. So the food goes down the esophagus, goes to the stomach, stays there a couple hours, gets churned up. Then it's going to leave the stomach and go into the small intestine. The first part of the small intestine is this here. This is the duodenum. So the first part of the small intestine is the duodenum. The middle part, which I'm just going to kind of group like that, is the jejunum. And then the distal end of the small intestine is called the jejunum. The jejunum, the ileum. Let's do that again. So from superior to inferior, duodenum, the middle part is the jejunum, and then the distal part is the ileum here. Ileum leads into the large intestine. Look at these intestines. They don't just flop out on the street like you would think. They're not a big long cord. They're all held together by that big fan shape structure there. That's called the mesentery, and that's how that intestine gets its blood supply. See all those vessels in there? All right, so that's the small intestine. Duodenum, middle part is jejunum, distal end is ileum. Now we go into the large intestine, and the large intestine wraps around that small intestine like a frame. See how that frames it? So if this is the ileum going into the large intestine, here we see at this little end down here, this first part of the large intestine looks kind of like an earlobe. That's the cecum. Now, the large intestine goes upwards like this. This is the ascending colon. It's ascending. It goes across like that. That's the transverse colon. It's traversing the abdomen. Then it goes down here, descending colon. Then it makes kind of an S-shaped curve here. This S-shaped curve is the sigmoid colon. Then it goes into rectum and anus. Now we're going to look at the urinary system. Here's a kidney here. I'm going to flip these guts. On the other side, there's another kidney. Now we're going to see a tube that leads from the kidney down to the bladder. This is the urinary bladder that I'm pinching here. This kidney is going to filtrate the urine. The filtered urine goes down the ureter to the bladder. So we see kidney and ureter on both sides. Kidney, ureter, bladder. Now, this is a female cat. So we're going to look at the female reproductive organs on this cat. I'm going to put this little card kind of back behind here so we can see this a little better and lay this out like this, kind of, sort of. Now, retracting the bladder down like this. This is kind of a Y-shaped organ, or a V-shaped organ. The base of it, way down here, right here, that's called the body of the uterus. So if that's a V, the base of it is the body of the uterus. This is called the horn of the uterus. Another horn on this side, but I'm faking it because that one's cut off, so shh. This one has been, had its tubes tied, let's say. So there's the horn of the uterus there. Here's a horn of the uterus there. At the ends of the horns, we're going to see this kind of, looks like a seed or a pod. That, what I'm pinching, that is the ovary. And then surrounding the ovary, all this kind of gook and gunk and stuff, those are called the oviducts. That's how it gets its nourishment, blood supply and all that. That's the oviduct there. So ovary in the middle, oviducts surrounding it. So that's a female cat. Now, I'm going to grab this other cat here and show you the male cat. Down here, there's the bladder, urinary bladder, kidney. This is what's called the vas deferens here, twin tubes that run all the way down the central groin. This here are the testes, and you can't really see the penis. So there's the testes here. These twin tubes here are the vas deferens. That's all you need to know for the male reproductive system. Vas deferens and testes.